What's up everybody, Patrick here, welcome back, and moving on to another question dealing with leasing. So if you buy an asset for $100,000 today and sell it for $30,000 in 7 years, what would you have to charge as a monthly lease payment in a perfect market? Interest rate is 6% compounded monthly, and lease payments are made at the beginning of each month. So if you remember before, what we were doing was we were comparing the option of leasing versus the option of buying, comparing their NPVs, calculating that net advantage to leasing, and then making a decision whether we should buy or lease, depending on which NPV is greater. Well, whenever you see the words perfect market in a question, basically what that means is that you're indifferent about the decision. So basically your NPV of buying the asset has to be equal to the NPV of leasing. So no matter which one you go with, the value to you is going to be the same in a perfect market. Well, notice in this question how we're given a bunch of information about us buying the asset. So let's draw a timeline of what's going on if we buy the asset. So in time 0, we buy it for $100,000, so that's going to be a negative cash flow. And then we're going to be able to sell it in 7 years for $30,000, which is going to be a positive cash flow. So what's the NPV of buying the asset going to be? Well, we just basically have to take these cash flows and discount them to time 0. So we got this negative 100,000 in time 0, so that is not discounted. And then we got this 30,000 happening in time 7, in year 7, and we're going to have to discount that back to time 0. Well, notice that we're given an interest rate. However, this interest rate is compounded monthly. So what we have to do is we have to take this APR of 6% and then divide it by 12, which would give us 0.5%. And this here represents the effective monthly rate. So we're going to have to discount this by this effective monthly rate. So at the bottom here, we're going to have 1 plus 0.005, which is 0.5% in decimals. So there's going to be 1.005. And how many monthly periods are there in 7 years? Well, we would just take 7, multiply it by 12, and we would get 84. So this would be 84 over here. And you can do this calculation also with your financial calculator. So you can input the future value to be 30,000. You could input the interest rate to be 0.5%. Here, it goes in as a percentage. Over there, it goes in as a decimal. And then we're discounting it for 84 periods. There's no other payments in between. And then you are just solving for that PV. So this here in your financial calculator would give you the same result as that calculation there. So when you do that calculation, you end up getting $19,732.04, and then you net it out with the negative 100,000. So the NPV of buying the machine is negative $80,267.96. So notice that it's a negative NPV, and that makes sense because since we're buying the machine, it's going to cost us money. So in a perfect market, if we were to take this machine and lease it out, we have to be able to recover this cost here in time 0, the present value of that full cost in time 0. So basically, the NPV of the leasing has to equal $80,267.96. Notice how I made it a positive here because the NPV of that leasing has to be positive. We got to get a positive value in order to net out with that negative value right there. So now we can solve for that lease payment in a perfect market that would make the NPV of the leasing recover that NPV of the buying. So now let's draw the timeline for the leasing part. And we're given enough information to draw the timeline here. So the lease payments are made monthly and they're made at the beginning of each month. So the lease payments are going to start right away in time 0. And then in month 1, there's going to be another lease payment, in month 2, etc., all the way to the 84th month. However, the last lease payment is going to be at time 83 because this is the 84th month, and then the lease payments are made at the beginning of each month. So that last lease payment is going to be in time 83. So this here, it's basically an annuity due, because those lease payments are made at the beginning of each period. And the present value of these lease payments has to equal this value right here, this $80,267.96. So you could figure out that lease payment with your financial calculator. So we know the PV of all these lease payments has to be $80,267.96. Future value is just 0. There's no other cash flow happening there. The interest rate is 0.5%, right? That's the effective monthly rate that we found before. There's going to be 84 lease payments, and then you're just going to be solving for that PMT there. And then since these lease payments are made at the beginning of each month, you got to make sure your calculator is in BGN mode. So inputting all these variables, making sure your calculator is in BGN mode, you then solve for the payment. And when you compute that, you end up getting $1,166.77. So that there is the lease payment that would make sense in a perfect market, and then that lease payment would make the NPV of the buying equal to the NPV of the leasing. So that there is your final answer.